can the Black community play a better part in policing in itself? How can we as parents, us as teachers, us as people that work in the community, and us seeing young kids growing up, how can we play a better part in policing in the community?
That's a tough one, to be honest with you, because one, I've been removed in terms of my location-wise, so I haven't lived in the city in a very, very long time. But in terms of the community playing a better part in policing is first and foremost, in my opinion, by policing each other first, so that the uniformed police don't get involved. That phone call never has to be made. So trust first and foremost within one another. I'll tell you one thing that I can't stand to hear is, you know, Black people kill more Black people than police all the time. You know, that's besides the point. That's not something that we're touching upon, because that is an issue within our community that we work on and we're actively working on. So that's not something that needs to be discussed worldwide or anything like that. We're working on that. I'm having a Zoom meeting, thank you. So in terms of within the community, again, with programs created, with more training for civilian personnel to respond to emergency things in which necessarily a police officer is not needed, where somebody can be talked off that bridge, for the lack of a better analogy, as opposed to bullets flying by their head because you know, it's taking too long at this point. You know, when I can tell you, when police go into a situation, they want to get to the call. They want the call to be over as quick as possible. They want to go back into service, and they want to go do the next call or whatever it is they need to do. We need our own people to come in and exercise that patience that we have not seen in a very, very long time, where the questions are asked, the you know, the rub on the back even is given, the understanding, maybe not necessarily saying, hey, you know, I've been in your shoes, but maybe even saying, listen, what you're going through sounds tough. You know, just to say something as simple as that will stop a lot of the phone calls from going to the police department in general and talking a lot of people off that bridge, so to speak. So I think if we can come together and get the training as a community, especially with some of those reallocations of funding, you'd have a lot more unarmed professionals who can respond to a lot of these things. And again, ultimately, we end up policing ourselves, making the community safer.
I think first of all, we should probably work on the us against them mentality. I think that's one of the biggest problem. You know, everybody have this thing, us against, you know, them. And I think everything starts with the kids. And if we could get the kids to, you know, understand what's happening, I would say get the family members to get involved. For example, we need to stop being afraid of the cops. That's one of the first thing. That's the first thing, because it's gonna be a master over, you know, servant situation, and that's what we're trying to get away from. So first of all, we gotta get away from the us against you mentality. And to touch a little on that subject Mike mentioned about the school setup, that's important. Kids need to go back to school for a reason, not because they're required to. They need to go to school because they want to. For example, the little programs, the music programs, you know, learn to play something. And you know, the officers, I agree, they should be in the community among everybody. The kids should be interacting with everybody. Just like the officer said, the pat on the back, it's necessary. You know, you need to encourage people. Let's stop being afraid of each other. And that's the biggest problem we're facing right now. Thank you.
I totally agree with you. We rather film it than step in and help. Would anyone else like to respond to that?
He brings up a very good point that I want to bring up, that I remember from my youth. And one of the things he said was very important was we need to stop being afraid of the police. And I can tell you from a very young age, 2, 3, 4 years old, I would do something that most children would do to irk their parents, annoy them. and a cop would pass by on the street, and the first thing my mother would say was, "You do that again, that police officer's taking you away." So we kind of ingrained that in our children, and you know what I mean? And it's been done to my cousins, and so we kind of have to kind of step back and not paint that initial picture as somebody that is going to take me away from my mommy and daddy because of something I did, that however minor or big, we kind of have to stop ingraining that in our children from such a young age.
I think it is a two-way street. There are some that would say that these things happen because that is their experience with the police officer. Then there are some that would say that it's because I already thought that coming in, that when I got pulled over, I felt like I needed to automatically protect myself and jump bad, and I want to protect my children and make them know about the, you know, the society they live in and the world that they live in. So it really is a two-way street, which is why I really think that Darrell has a point with rebranding the police officers, where they were considered a friend and a protector as opposing to the person that's going to come and take you away. So thank you for that, Lieutenant Charles.
I know you guys mentioned like it's you know, the cops. I do, I mean, community. I do feel like though, NYPD, right? I think the trust needs to come from them first to bring that back to the community. I mean, for us, the community to feel, I guess, comfortable again, because I can only give you an anecdotal. So a couple weekends ago, there was some ruckus in front of my building, and you know, my thought about calling the cops, and I'm like, I don't think that's a good idea. You know, that right there, like that thought, you know, I don't think calling the cops right now is a good idea, because hypothetically, right, say I let that phone call slide, the cops come, and then it's just like 15, because it was a good amount of them. They were just there listening to music and just relax, just chilling. But I have to break that down and think about the reasons why. What's available? There's no, you know, gyms available. I mean, at that there were no gyms up for you to play basketball. There's nowhere else for you to congregate. They close the parks at a certain time, so you can't get into the park. So I understand that, right? So that's why I kind of like eased it back, saying don't call them, because you'll most likely get two very eager officers who want to try to different situation without trying to assess the situation. And I think it's one of those things where we need to really regain that trust back. They need to bring that within, you know, the community, if it was ever there, or not even regain it, because I don't think it was ever there, but just to, like you guys say, rebrand. I just think it starts with NYPD. And until that happens, unfortunately, I'm not sure who said it, it will be a resounding us against them for me, because there's, at this point, enough is enough. There's but so much the community can do, because the community, as far as I'm concerned, there's no patience. We're done waiting for the cops to get it right. So until that happens, until we can just be, it will feel like a us against them when I'm walking down the street with my son, or I'm walking home from work. That's how I would feel, because that's the way it is now, unfortunately.
Let me explain what I meant when I said, you know, the us against them mentality. I'm not saying that, you know, people should just sit around and expect the cops to save them. I'm saying we should meet each other somewhere, you know, in the middle. You know, trust me, I've seen cops do some things that I'm like, wow, you know. And the truth is, some of these people, they just straight up hate who they're dealing with. And some of these people, they're just drunk with power. That's the truth. But I'm saying, we still got to do our part. You know what I'm saying? Because these guys, you know, just like the protest the other day, that protest forced a lot of stuff to happen. And I think us as a community, we got to have conversation with each other, you know, and the conversation we should have is stop being afraid of the police. They're not our masters. These guys are here to protect us or enforce laws, you know, to keep the community in line, not our, you know. And that's what we need to have a conversation about. And as Mike said, the cops, the high level cops need to come into school because all this we're talking about, we got to start from the kids.
I think it's a bit deeper, right? And I'm all for the conversation. So I don't want to just come off as this teacher radical, right? Because I'm all for conversation. I love dialogue. But I also think in order for us to have conversation, both sides need to be held accountable and both sides need to acknowledge mishaps. And I think it can't just always fall back into the community. Oh, black on black crime. Oh, you just shot someone. Okay, we have to also hold, the powers that be accountable as well and think about the why. Why is this happening? Why are people so angry? Why? And I think we are so afraid to dissect that question because of the answer that we'll get. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, real quickly, and you guys are bringing up points there. It could be conversation points on their own, but let me just say this quickly. Let's start with the police. New York City Police Department says serve and protect. Serve who? Protect what or who? Let's start there. The truth is, in certain neighborhoods, the police officer does that. It serves the community and protect property and people. In our community, Black community, the reality is a little bit different. To me, at least to me, it feels like search and destroy. Okay? You want to see a situation escalate really fast? A police officer can't give you an unlawful order, and even questioning it can make a situation escalate. So what we have in front of us is a really knotty situation. It needs to be untangled from different ends. But I'm thinking, here are two places we can start and we need to make headways. One, as I said in the last meeting, we as the Black community, we need to have a conversation with ourselves. We do. Because one of you, I don't know if it's Durrell or Omar, talk about this accountability factor. That cannot be overlooked. We as the community have to start taking some responsibility. Yes, there are some economic problems and all of that, but we're going to get to that in a while because young people, the 16-year-old and the 18-year-old have become parent. Those are symptoms of a bigger problem. When you have kid, as Omar said, just hanging out in front of his building with no place to go, the park is closed. This didn't just happen yesterday. These problem has been there in our community for a long time, and they need to be redressed. And I'm simply saying, in other communities, non-Black communities, there are resources that are used for kids, camps, extra class activity. When teens leave school, why don't we reopen back centers where they can go and take part in stuff like art or music or whatever? It's funny how we can find money for a war overseas, but we can't find money to fix problem in certain communities. The money is there. It's just that there are somebody, or when the policies are being drawn up, we are not sitting at the table. So nobody's saying to us, we need to reopen back that community center. It served over 2,000 kids and it did make a difference. Somebody need to be there to say, no. The police department looks more like the military now than a police department. Can we just move things around? We know what the problems are and we can sit them. When the policies are being made, we need to have real representatives sitting there to say, yes, no, that won't work. Here are solutions that experts have worked out, and we can start here. How we deal with teens, and then we as Black men have to have that conversation with ourselves where we start to understand, because there are a lot of men out there who don't even know what responsibility means. I'm telling you, they don't. So that's the conversation we as men and as a community need to have. And then after that, we start with the dialogue with the police department. As Devon and everybody says, we shouldn't fear the police. The police should be seen as part of our community. That's where we want to get to. So let's start the conversation. And then we as a community, we need to start talking to one another, saying, guys, here are some things we need to do. Why don't we just get back to being our brother's keeper? So if I'm walking and Durrell is coming in front of me and he's just throw a bag on the street, I can say, hey, brother, hey, man, listen, you dropped something here. We don't want this on the street. You know, it's us taking pride in where we live. And then once that sense of pride becomes contagious, and once we get the little ones involved, we have a movement going. And the thing about these type of movement, they have a tendency to snowball, which is exactly what we want. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael.
Sean, if I can
and
touch
Charles?
upon it really quick. Yes, thank you. So I just want to say I have 3 points that I'll make. First and foremost, not necessarily saying or believing that I'm cut from a different cloth or anything like that in terms of law enforcement, but the only reason I get to put on this uniform and get to carry all this stuff on my hip is because the people say that I can. That authority was given to me by you guys, the people. And when in saying that, we're obligated. Otherwise, there's no need for us to be better for you, okay? And if I'm doing it as an individual, just me alone, I have no problem taking up that mantle and saying, I will be better for you, okay? By all means. And I'll do everything in my power to make everybody around me, including those who may be going through mental struggles, as we spoke earlier, better for you, better for the community. Because at the end of the day, I took this job making an oath saying that I am willing to put my life on the line for yours. Not I'm going to make the easy, conscious decision to take yours because I can. So that's the furthest thing for me, and I'm going to continue to try to grow to be better for the community as a whole, and all of you on this panel. So I thank you for that. In terms of Omar, the statement he made about people being outside, and he thought for a second about calling the police. I applaud him for giving it a second, kind of letting it die down on its own, not getting that outside party involved, because again, it did remedy itself, I believe is what Omar was telling me. But as a community, as a person not in this uniform, I think that we kind of have to get back to that neighborly type of relationship where if I got to wake up first thing in the morning and there's music outside, I should be able to safely approach my brother and sister and say, hey guys, I got to get up and I got to put food on this table. Can we, can you turn it down just a little bit? I'm saying this as a Black man, don't look at the uniform. As a community person, we gotta trust each other. We gotta get back into the community and know that if I go talk to my brother and sister, I'm not gonna be retaliated against because I'm stopping their fun or whatever it is that they may be doing. In terms of what Mr. Dawkins said with in terms of centers and children not having centers and programs and things like that, I know a perfect place where the money can come from. There's already been a law signed as of today that's going to bring police reform and reallocating those funds, defunding the police. That's where that money could and should go to. We should build those communities. I know we have people, we have advocates, Bronx borough presidents and everything, Brooklyn borough presidents. We have these people that are speaking on our behalf, but let's bring these ideas to the forefront and get these community centers and programs actually established. So we have to be able to call our local government. We have to be able to get together, because a lot of people will say, my neighbor will do it. They'll make that phone call. I don't have to. No, we have strength in numbers. So we have to make those phone calls to our local government leaders and say, let's get these centers open. Let's get, good school lunches that foster good learning back in. Let's get up-to-date textbooks back in our schools. Let's get up to date so that our kids are competitive in terms of our education, and we break the cycle of what so many claim that we are doing, which is destroying our own neighborhoods, which is BS in my opinion. But if that is the case, let's break that cycle by getting some good books in these schools, getting some centers built, and let's educate our kids and build them stronger.
Thank you. That was excellent. You brought up some amazing points right there. Wish there were more officers like you in our own communities. Thank you so much for that.